Michael Barrymore, you were always there for me in Action Park. Oh, welcome back everyone to the channel. This is something quite different to what I usually do. It's a countdown of my top 5 scariest hitchhikes ever in my life. Now some of you are probably thinking, hitchhikes? Have you even done that many hitchhikes? I didn't know that was really one of your things. Or at least the ones I've seen you do with Greg, etc. weren't particularly scary. They were good fun. Well, before the days of this channel, I went on many a European trip, say many, about 3, where I just hitchhiked around. I've probably hitchhiked definitely in excess of 75 times. And some of them were great, most of them were great. Some of them were kind of, not much was said in the car. Got me from A to B, served a purpose. And some of them were a little bit frightening. Now, I don't mean anyone pulled a knife out on me or anything like that. Nothing that extreme. But it's just the fact that you're in someone's car. You're kind of at their mercy. And when you're young and naive and have only watched films and heard newspaper articles about people who have died rather than all the positive experiences people have had in the world, your mind can start to panic in certain situations and fear the worst, especially when you smoke too much weed, which I used to do. Anyway, the good news is, guys, you've got some new footage here and new stories to be told. A couple of them don't have that much footage. There's only a tiny bit, so I'll have to rely on my storytelling skills to make up for that. Finally, I will also be making another very similar video to this, which will count down my top 5 or top 10, probably have to be a top 10 hitchhikes ever, which will be all the positive ones, by Lake Geneva where we went water skiing off the back of it, things like that. Car strapped onto the back of a lorry, some of you may have seen. So that'll be a top 10, but for now, let's get into the scary ones. Here's number 5. Now this is one that many of you will have seen, not that many of you though, judging by the views on this video. And it can be seen in a video that I released a while back called Attempting to Live Off the Land. And I did this in the summer of 2016. It was Barcelona to Berlin. I have since made 4 or 5 videos from this trip, which you can check out in the description below. Anyway, let's get to this clip. So I'm at a mountain pass on the border of Switzerland and Italy. And I'm heading north into Switzerland, and I've actually hiked up the pass. It was a long, arduous, sweaty hike. I'm scared, man. And I'm looking to hitchhike my way down. I didn't have a scooter on this occasion like I did with Greg, so I'm looking to hitchhike down. Looked like a decent place to hitchhike, nice, open, wide area as you can see there. And one remarkable thing about this clip is how quickly it took to get a lift. Check this out. Okay, it's not getting any earlier, so I need to get a lift. Here's a car. So that's the second car that went past, genuinely. He's an old man, about 70 odd. And the first thing that struck me when I got into his car was he reeked of booze, beer. He reeked of beer, right? So possibly quite tipsy and displaying mannerisms to suit. And we're about to drive down a not treacherous mountain road, but definitely one that you'd want to be careful on so that you didn't hurtle down an Alp. Here's some of the footage.
Ich habe keine gutes Deutsch.
Nein, nicht.
Oh, yeah.
Jetzt ist zu.
Yeah. Can
Keep your eyes on the road.
Immer riktigt fara med det.
Riktig.
Ja.
This is a death
Ja,
trap.
just. 141 kilometer.
Oh,
Det är man fyller.
wow.
Aber Nordisch alltid.
I'm going to die.
So, yeah, I'm trying to be funny at the time. I'm trying to make I knew he couldn't understand a word I was saying, but it was just my humour at the time. I was still a bit immature, and I was just trying to make it like a comedy sketch, you know, which it kind of is. But yeah, his car felt old. I guess it's just the unknown. You know, you don't know this person. They're in the driver's seat. You can't just jump out. They're in control of this, you know, killing machine, and you just have to trust that everything's going to be fine. And of course it was. You know, he's probably driven up and down that mountain hundreds of times. I probably wasn't that scared on this one, to be honest. It was quite funny, really. It's got to make the top 5, right? It's just fun. Second car, Boozy old Swiss pensioner, drives me down an Alp. You know, it's got to make the list. So that's number 5. Number 6, fucking hell, we're going backwards. Number 4, let's move forwards. We nearly did move backwards in this next clip. It was literally an hour or half an hour after I got dropped off by the boozy old man.
That guy who just picked me up reeks of beer.
And I'd say no more than half an hour after that, I wander down the main road and I'm looking to hitchhike again. I'm looking to move further down the valley. I hitchhiked with a guy, I can't remember his name. He was a young guy, looked like a sort of outdoor activity kind of guy. He picked me up and he was just literally taking me to the next village down the valley. So probably 5 miles he took me, no more than that. And there's only footage of post-event here, but basically he tried to pull round at a junction. I won't try and describe it, it's too confusing, but he did a bit of a dodgy maneuver in a bid to try and drop me off in a suitable spot for me. And this I think is one of the dangers of hitchhiking. The person could be nice as pie and have all the best will in the world, but they could make a mistake, and that mistake might be in their eagerness to please you. And this was one of those situations. The long and short of it is, we nearly crashed, and it would have been a bad crash. It would have been a full-on crash. He was in this dodgy position and a car just missed us by inches. And to the point where we were both speechless for a few seconds. We were like... And then we looked at each other and kind of like just laughed, really. You know, you got to laugh in those situations. And then I thought to turn the GoPro on, and this was the clip afterwards.
Nearly just crashed.
I see.
That was close.
Yes.
That was close, man. Thanks for that.
Okay. Have a nice trip.
Thanks, man.
Safety trip.
Yeah.
Safe trip, yeah. Thanks for that, mate. I mean, it would have been his fault. That's the thing. It wasn't my fault. You know, my death would have been on his hands. Weird situation. Because I felt bad afterwards. I felt like, oh man, it would have been his fault, technically, because he was driving and he did a wrong manoeuvre, but it was because of me that he did it. So that's why I would have felt guilty. I felt guilty anyway for some reason, just because he'd nearly written his car off and potentially, you know, lost his life. Strange situation, but that's the one that I've got, you know, no footage of the actual incident. But I mean, on paper that might be the scariest, but it was over before it had happened. So it, you know, but that makes number 4, partly because of its convenient lineage from the first one, and as we move on to number 3, we go back a year. We go back to 2015, the previous summer, and I'd been hitchhiking with my good old mate Brennan. He'd gone home at one point, and I was on my own from Frankfurt down to Lyon via Heidelberg, Freiburg, Bern, and Geneva. And I was meeting up with Greg in Lyon. That was the plan, and then we were going to go home. Now at this point I was in Geneva, and I was really struggling to get a lift out of Geneva. Switzerland, especially the cities of Switzerland, especially a place like Geneva, was very hard to hitchhike. Everyone's rich, no one's got time for you. And I think I was technically in France here actually, as I attempt to hitchhike with what looks to be a pair of underpants on my head. I must have lost my cap or didn't have a cap. So to stop me getting sunstroke, I wore a pair of pants on my head. I'm starting to realise why maybe I didn't have too much success at this particular spot. Yeah, I mean, why would you pick someone up with a fucking pair of underpants on their head? You div. Fucking lost the plot. I'm worried about lunatics picking me up. I mean, how must have I looked? Anyway, eventually, believe it or not, I did get a lift. I think I'd taken the pants off at this point. I got a lift from a really nice chap to the edge, to some sort of toll plaza. You know, about 20 miles from Geneva. I don't know where it was exactly. And it was. He said that this would be a good spot to hitchhike, right? And when I was at this toll plaza, I sat on a wall and actually I left my phone there. It was only like a Nokia brick thing, 3310 sort of thing. And it was at this point, as you can see, that I see a lorry pulled up. I think I'd been waiting here quite a while, maybe an hour. And it was so hot. I mean, a lot of these days it was roasting hot. Anyway, I approached the lorry and speak to the driver, sort of like a Moroccan French driver, and he agrees to take me to Lyon. But in my haste, I left my phone behind. Now, this was a great lift, to be fair. Really nice guy. We didn't have any language. He probably spoke as much English as I spoke French, which is fuck all. And to be honest, thinking about it, this one really isn't. You will look at this and you'll say, what's so scary about this? But there was a moment where I shat my pants, right? And here's why. So a few minutes, probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the lift, he asks me if I smoke marijuana. And, you know, obviously I said, yeah, you know, from time to time. I think I'd cut down massive. I think I'd all but stopped at this point. But, you know, I was like, yeah, just to see what happened. So here we are, as you can see, sharing a joint. And it's all fun and games. And I got quite baked.
Très bien. Good picture, good.
You know, I was quite baked. But the problem with that is, when you're baked and you're kind of with someone you don't know, you can get a bit paranoid. As we approached this, we'll call it a viaduct, big scary bridge with like hardly any barrier, as you can see, and just huge drops either side. And it was when he took the GoPro off me, with his driving hand he had a spliff, that was his left hand, so he's driving on this crazy aqueduct. He's driving with his left hand with a spliff, and then with his right hand he's filming the deathly drop to our left. And I just was like, whoa mate, what are you doing? I mean, he was probably a great driver. The odds of him driving off the bridge were probably next to nothing, but it was just, the visuals of it were just scary. So at this moment I grabbed the GoPro off him and I was like, mate, I'll film, you know, I'll film. And I think he was like annoyed that I'd taken the GoPro off him for some reason. Fuck knows why. Maybe I nearly made him crash. I don't know. But then it was fine, you know. We were admiring the views together, pretty baked. And he dropped me off in some industrial far out industrial zone in Lyon, which I agreed to. You know, that's part of the deal. He was like, I'll have to drop you off in some random place. And yeah, I arrived in Lyon safe and sound. Here I am.
I'm baked. So.
And that night, there was a huge misunderstanding between me and Greg as to where we should meet. I thought he was going to meet me at a certain railway station, but it was one he'd been at the previous day. He was on the other side of the city. So I went to this railway station waiting for Greg, and he never showed up. And I ended up sleeping rough on the platform.
Worst day ever.
I don't remember it being the worst day ever, comic book guy. But it certainly was a terrible outcome, because a few hours later, after probably 2 or 3 terrible hours sleep, probably at about 5 a.m, this showed up. I think that awakening was probably more frightening than the hitchhike itself, but fuck it. That's at number 3. It's made the cut. Number 2 on the list, and you know, things are hotting up here a little bit now. So I'm attempting, this is on the same trip, by the way, as 2016. Okay, so I'm going from Barcelona to Berlin, and at this point I'm in Austria. I've gone through Switzerland, I've gone through St. Anton, and I was just walking, hitchhiking, just bit by bit by bit. I almost got picked up by a nun. She was an old nun. She wasn't young. She wasn't fit. She was like more Mother Teresa's age. Maybe not that old. But she said, oh, I'm going to this place, and it was kind of out the way. And I was like, oh no, I'm going another way. Idiot. Should have done that. Hitchhiking with a nun. Always pick the option that would make for the better story. Okay, that I might have slept in a nunnery. Anyway, I passed up the nun, and I got a lift to this service station, and I'm probably about 50 miles or 40 miles from Innsbruck at this point. It's a good spot to hitchhike, and I'm waiting about 2 hours. Time is really ticking on, and I'm just really eager, you know, to get there. I don't want to be spending another night in a tent in the middle of nowhere. And a van pulls up. It's one of those minibuses, and there's about 6 dudes. I didn't know what nationality they were at the time, but I think they were Romani Gypsy, but from Slovakia. Now, I'm not sure. Definitely the registration plate was Slovakia, and I think, judging from the music that they were playing and, you know, how they looked, they were Romani, right? Of Romani descent. Anyway, they said they were working. They'd driven into Austria to look for work, building work and stuff, and now they were driving home. Now they put me in the back of the minibus in this area, and it was an area that I was effectively trapped in. There was no getting out of it, because there was the seats in front that they were on, no doors there, and then my seats were quite high. The only way out was to climb over my seats and then out the back doors, but they might have been locked. But that, you're probably thinking, who cares? Well, who cares, right? Now, the problem was, on this trip at some point, I can't remember who it was, someone had told me that there were gangs of people that did operate around Europe, and they were kind of Balkan in nationality. So maybe Serbian, maybe Bosnian. Who knows? Maybe Romanian. I don't know. But what they did, and this might be bullshit, I don't know, but this is what I was told on this trip, earlier in this trip, might have been in Barcelona, that you need to be careful who you hitchhike with, because they'll pick you up and then they'll harvest your organs, right? So, does that happen? Probably. Does it happen regularly? Almost definitely not. The thing that really started to worry me was they're all talking to each other and laughing, and the one guy who could speak a bit of German was speaking to me, and he was showing me all these tools, right? What is that? And all he was doing was showing me the tools that they used to work with in reality. But the paranoid, overcautious segment of my brain, which was quite large back then, perceived it as these are the tools that they're going to torture me with. You know, there was a clamp, there was a pair of pliers, there was a hammer, there was a chisel, and they were kind of laughing. I think he was making jokes, they were laughing, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. They're going to harvest my organs. I wasn't convinced of that at all. It was only like a 10% chance in my head that that was going to happen. Maybe more. Now, I knew there'd be a few Innsbruck junctions for them to use, but I was really hoping, and predicting that they would just go off at the first junction, Innsbruck West, drop me off and then continue on, or at least the central one. But this isn't what happened, and this is what made it even more nerve-wracking in those final moments. We went past Innsbruck West, we went past one that said Innsbruck Centrum, so now I'm thinking, oh God, if we go past Innsbruck, I'm dead. The next one, Innsbruck Mitte, I thought, this is it, this is the last Innsbruck junction. We went past that one too. Then, one last ray of hope, there was a sign for Innsbruck East.
If we don't turn off here, I'm dead.
Luckily, they did, and it was fine. Obviously, they were just workers. It was fine. I was just being paranoid, but naive as well, and overcautious, which is not a bad trait. That's probably why I'm still alive.
Okay, danke. Thanks for not killing me. Bye. Ciao.
And as you can see there, wishing them well, and just being quite grateful to still be walking with 2 feet. None more so, though, than this last clip. Now, there isn't much footage of this last clip. It's number 1 on this list, and it's the oldest of the 5. It's one of the first times, I don't know, maybe the 10th or 12th time I ever hitchhiked, and it was with another friend called Dixon. Some of you may have seen the hilarious clip of us hitchhiking in a car that's strapped onto a back of a lorry and pressing the CD player and Right Said Fred coming on. Unbelievable. Hilarious. That will make the top 5 or the top 10 hitchhiking moments. Probably come in at number 1. But later in that trip, we are trying to get to our final destination of Zagreb. And we are on the border. We're literally on the border of Slovenia and Croatia. We're at a service station which is about a mile from the border, and we're really, really struggling to get a lift. We can't figure out why, because we'd had such good luck up until this point. And we had told ourselves, me and Dixon, because hitchhiking was new to us and we're in Europe and we're only 22, we wanted to make sure we're being careful. And we didn't want to get in with any really dodgy people. But after waiting 3 or 4 hours, and even having been approached by the police, as you can see in this clip, we're in trouble. Yeah, they wanted to see our passports. They wanted to ask us what we were doing. Luckily, they said we could hitchhike legally. We did our standards started to drop, and this was the result. An Audi, I think it was an Audi R3, quite a flash, top of the range, white, drug dealer's car, if ever I saw one, pulled up, and the guy, how do I describe him? Again, Romanian looking or Albanian, kind of dodgy looking guy, really kind of cocky and just looked a bit like a criminal, looked a bit like a drug dealer, like a big time drug dealer. And we both looked at him and he was like, Zagreb. And the temptation was just too much. We did have an excuse like, oh no, we need water. We don't need But we jumped in And he started driving, and immediately, he didn't speak any English, by the way, like not one word, but immediately, oh sorry, he did speak one word, cocaine. Yeah. Immediately, it became clear that his driving was mental. I mean, weaving in and out of cars, the most impatient. He wasn't in a bad mood. He was just what I presume very high on coke, right? I mean, if he wasn't high on coke, I'd hate to see him when he is, because he was bombing it. Now, here's a little clip of us, me and Dixon, kind of a bit worried to begin with, because we'd already told him to slow down, and he just completely ignored us. So here we are.
No.
I'm not safe, man.
I'm not safe, man.
In this next clip, you can see just how fast he was driving. Now, this wasn't the fastest he drove. In the end, he almost maxed out the speedometer, and I've looked at the model. Yeah, I've got the model up here. Yeah, he was basically going 140 miles an hour. You know, again, you're not in control of the car. He's ignored your requests, which is quite, I mean, rude isn't the word. It's just very worrying. And he's going 140 miles an hour, 240 kilometers, I think it was. And, you know, the trees, the lampposts are just a blur. And you're just kind of hoping that the guy doesn't lose control of the car or, you know, crash. Because if you did, you're dead. And that's why I think it's really inconsiderate, which just sounds like the wrong word again. It's fucking lunatic behaviour. But cars would approach, you know, in the fast lane at such a rapid speed, and then they'd just at the last minute they'd like indicate and move out the way, and that happened time and time again. And eventually, I say eventually, when we got to Zagreb in about 10 minutes, it literally took about 15 minutes, I think. When we did finally get to Zagreb, oh no, sorry, I've forgotten some of the main key points here. So he'd be like, cocaine, yeah, cocaine, and we'd be like, yeah. He'd like, Colombia, I go, Colombia, cocaine. So he basically admitted to us that he went to Colombia to kind of facilitate presumably big drug deals. And he showed us he had about 5 different passports. All of them were real passports but stolen. One of them was from Turkey, one of them was from Romania, one of them was from Albania, Slovenia, Croatia, and so on. He was like, you know, it's pretty obvious the kind of stuff he was into, and the kind of stuff he did as a career. Bear in mind, he was showing us those passports rooting around in his glove box while he was doing 120 miles an hour. Now, there's no footage of this, unfortunately, because we didn't have the GoPro back then. It was just Dixon had given me his phone sneakily so I could film. So we didn't want to film the guy too much. Do you know what I mean? You know, he might have freaked out or something. But we got into Zagreb, and he was so impatient as the roads started to, you know, busy up. And we were on a dual carriageway entering the city, and he was just, I'm not exaggerating when I say it's the kind of driving I regularly did on GTA Vice City. Weaving in and out of cars, missing cars by a foot. You know, missing them by such small margins, finding little gaps. I couldn't believe it. It was like, you know, when you don't clip any cars and it feels really good. It was like that, except it didn't feel very good. Anyway, at one point, a police car pulls alongside him at some traffic lights, and I thought, oh my God, if he's just seen him drive like that, he is busted in big capital letters. He got one of the passports out of the glove box, showed him his passport. He's like, you know, just really gesturing and talking his way out of it to the. And I'm thinking, if this was in Britain, there is no way in hell you would talk your way out of that. And sure enough, I don't know whether he bribed him I didn't quite see. He might have passed him something, I don't know. Or maybe that was the only explanation in my head for how he got away with it. But he got away with it. And he laughed, to a, hey, And I thought, fuck me, mate. How have you done that? And I just remember finally when we pulled up, we just got out and it just felt so damn good to have 2 feet on the ground. And that is why I think that one takes the top spot. I won't lie, we felt alive when we got out. We felt alive. Felt like we'd been on a roller coaster, a really unsafe roller coaster. We knew we had a great story to tell. So there's ups and downs, but overall I would recommend, guys, if you're gonna hitchhike, be safe. And I'm just talking to guys here, really. Girls, I would seriously consider not hitchhiking if I was a girl, but that's your decision. Whoever you are, if you've decided you want to hitchhike, definitely, don't be afraid to say no to getting into someone's car if you think they're really dodgy, because at the end of the day, you're pretty safe when you're outside their car. When you're inside, you ain't that safe. You're trapped in their car at high speeds, or you're at their mercy. So yeah, it's pretty obvious really, but I can confirm, having hitchhiked a few times, that it can be pretty unnerving if you're in there with the wrong sorts. So yeah, that's my disclaimer. But other than that, I really hope you enjoyed this vid. Sorry there wasn't more footage for some of them. And I will look forward to showing you the top 10 hitchhikes ever. It might be more enjoyable for you than this. It might not be. Either way, thanks for watching everyone. See you soon. Ta-ra.